Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Maysville Board of Commissioners, Monday, the 29th November special meeting. First, we'll have an invocation by Reverend Lees.
Father, we come before you. Father, we know that you're the one with all wisdom and all care. We just seek your direction as our country, our communities continue to go through this time. We just pray that you give us wisdom as we seek to create ways that are better pleasing to you and better serving to our communities. We ask these things in Christ's name.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Lees. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brammer?
Yes.
Commissioner Cartwell?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Wood?
Here.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes,
Mayor Cotterill?
Yes, ma'am.
City Manager Wallingford?
Here.
City Attorney Cottle?
Here.
Police Chief Muse?
Thank you. Discussion and motion, municipal order authorizing OSHA vaccine and testing policy 21-06.
Mayor and Commissioners, we were told about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We were given some information by the League of Cities regarding the OSHA ETS, which deals with either a mandated vaccine policy or the option of of vaccination or testing. The league has told us that we need to have a municipal order by December the 5th, which I believe is next Monday. So what we have done, I've given you a little handout there that is essentially our Appendix A, which Kelly will read in the municipal order. Do you want to read the order and then me go in to explain a little more? Or?
It doesn't matter.
Why don't we read the order and then have a motion and a second for discussion, and we'll go through it. Is that okay? Is that okay with everybody? Okay, go ahead.
A municipal order implementing the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, emergency temporary standard regarding vaccination, testing, and face covering policy. Whereas OSHA implemented an emergency temporary standard requiring employers to adopt a policy regarding vaccination, testing, and face coverings on November 5th, 2021, within 29 CFR 1910.501. Whereas Kentucky, as a state plan under OSHA, has adopted the emergency temporary standard. Whereas the city of Maysville is required under the emergency temporary standard to adopt a policy as of December 6, 2021. Whereas vaccination is a vital tool to reduce the presence and severity of COVID-19 cases in the workplace, in communities, and in the nation as a whole. The city of Maysville encourages all employees to receive a COVID-19 vaccination to protect themselves and other employees. Whereas an employee who chooses not to be vaccinated must comply with the city of Maysville policy on testing and face coverings. Now therefore be it ordered as follows. The city of Maysville is adopting the city of Maysville vaccination, testing, and face covering policy, the policy in Appendix A, which is attached to this municipal order. The policy applies to all employees of the city of Maysville with limited exceptions as listed in the policy in Appendix A. All other employee manual rules shall remain in force, and for this order will terminate within 6 months from November 5th, 2021, or upon notification of OSHA that the emergency temporary standard is no longer in effect.
Second for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. So what I have given you here is essentially our Appendix A. It just doesn't have City of Maysville filled in there. This is the policy that we were given, that was given to us by the League of Cities. And Kelly has.
And became promotion.
Yeah, and okay, and you've had City of Maysville filled in there. Okay. What this does, it gives this requirement is for any employer with 100 or more employees. We have probably close to 180 when you take into account full-time, part-time, and seasonal. So it's not just full-time employees. If you're looking at full-time, we have about 150. So we're well over the 100 employee requirement. The policy gives you a choice. You can either mandate the vaccine or you can give a choice to your employees. They can get the vaccine, or if they choose not to, they would have to wear a mask and get tested weekly. Those individuals who choose to get the vaccine, they have to get the first dose of a 2-dose vaccine by December 14th, second dose by December 28th, or the first dose of a 1-dose vaccine on the 28th, and in order to be in compliance by January 4th, which is when this goes into effect. As I read the standard, those employees who choose not to get the vaccine are, which we have in place right now. We have a face covering policy, but I do want to revisit that with you all at the next meeting. I've gotten some really good feedback from members of the police department. I think some good suggestions, but we'll get to that at our regular commission meeting. But the way this reads, individuals who are not vaccinated would have to start wearing a mask December the 6th, and beginning January 4th, prior to, would be required to be tested weekly for COVID. Anybody who does get vaccinated does have to show proof of the vaccination to the city, which would be to our human resource director. Now, the kicker in all of this, one of the reasons why, we probably ought to go on and do it, because if it goes into effect, it goes into effect. Now, it is in court right now, as Commissioner McKay had asked. It is in the 6th Circuit Court of Appeal. Is it in the 5th? Okay, I was thinking it went to the 6th in Cincinnati. It's called, there's a stay right now, but we're being told by members of the League of Cities, and I think Lisa even talked to Andrea Schindelbauer last week.
She emailed me this morning.
She emailed, okay. And the last contact I'd had with her was on November 19th, and she recommended that we move forward in case this order does stay in place. Because if it does, here's the kicker in all this. And I'm just going to read you directly off of what I have, this information. The occupation the OSHA Act of 1970, inflation adjusted for 2021, determines a maximum penalty for repeated and willful violations of OSHA rules at $136,532 with a minimum penalty of $9,753. The legislation sets a maximum penalty of $13,653 for any single serious violation, and further penalty of not more than that amount per day for failure to abate the violation. It goes on to say that the Build Back Better reconciliation bill would increase penalties by 10 times the amount. That bill would increase the maximum penalty for a willful and repeated violation to $1,365,320 with a minimum penalty of $97,530. Basically, what this is saying is if we don't have a municipal order in place, we don't have a testing policy, if we violate this, we could be fined those amounts. Kelly, do you want to add anything to? I mean, that's why we're here. Commissioner?
Kelly, I mean, if we do this, then are we to enforce it even though it's been put on hold?
So that's a good question. The stay, I believe, means that we don't have to immediately do this. The OSHA says you have to, and the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals is right now saying you don't have to pass this. But if we pass it, I think we have to enforce it, or it wouldn't make any sense to pass it if we're not going to enforce what we pass.
Okay, my next question is, what if we do this and it makes its way to the Supreme Court and they say no? Do we have to come back and,
Yeah, you could keep it in place, or you can come back and rescind it if you don't want to be doing, if you don't want to be forced by, OSHA to put in a policy that is not mandatory, then we could come back and rescind.
And that would be my recommendation to you all, is come back and rescind it let our employees make the choice on what they want to do. That's just my opinion. I would say come back and rescind it, Commissioner.
But just to clarify, when you said that about it doesn't go into effect in January, but basically it goes in effect December 6th.
Essentially for the face covering part does. There's time given for individuals to get the vaccine. That part doesn't go into effect till January the 4th. There's roughly a 6-week time frame there for individuals to get vaccinated. But the face covering part in the policy does go into effect December 6th, and it's really no different than what we have now.
But this all may be moot.
Yes,
Yeah.
Commissioner, it very well may. It very well may.
And I think we'll know from what I read, when I was researching what's going on in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, is they've waived a bunch of briefing deadline. They put them on an accelerated briefing deadline. So I think there's gonna be a decision on that pretty quickly.
So
I mean, I
that
get it.
happens, will we have I'm sorry,
go ahead.
will we have a special meeting to
We can.
rescind that?
Yes, we can. That's not a problem.
And Kelly, please help me, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just concerned about making someone do something. And then all of a sudden we come back and they say, nah, if we're overturning that, they don't have to do that. Since it's put on hold now, I'm just concerned about that.
Yeah,
Or should we be concerned about that? I guess my question.
Well, there's a certain liability in it.
I understand. Yeah, I understand that concern. But, so we're being, because of the stay, I guess my advice or legal advice would be, if we don't pass this today, then, I don't think we can be penalized by the federal OSHA people for failing to do this, because there's a Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals stay saying we don't have to do this today. Okay, but Matt has, he's gotten recommendations from the league, which we rely on a lot, saying, go ahead and do this, and we can always rescind. Now, to further try to answer your question, okay, if we pass this and we make everybody abide by it, and then we, the Supreme Court or the Fifth Circuit lifts their keeps their stay and it's upheld, and then we rescind, I don't know what the liability would have been to anybody. I don't know what exposure we're opening ourselves up to by making people either wear a mask or get in weekly testing. I mean, we're not forcing them to get jabbed with.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm just
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah, I don't see the liability if we pass it today and rescind it in 2 months. I don't see where we're opening ourselves up to a lawsuit for liability. But I do think that if you defer and don't pass this today, I don't think that we're open to exposure of those fines, because this whole thing is still under stay.
Well, I think the question there is,
But
I mean, would you say then let's say that it gets all the way to SCOTUS and they say OSHA's requirement is okay? Would your opinion be that we have until January 4th to comply?
my opinion would be that if the Supreme Court overturns their stay, then we need to get in here again and immediately pass it at that time.
Well, here's another
I-
question. Here's another question. Can we move forward and not act on it until a final ruling? That way it's in place, or?
We could have a first reading, couldn't we? And then,
Well, a municipal order is one reading. It's not an ordinance.
I mean, could you do that? I mean, I'm just, again, I'm just asking
Sure,
a question.
sure.
Can we move forward and just ourselves put it on hold pending federal court ruling or Supreme Court
I don't see,
the benefit?
the reason that I say I don't see the benefit of doing that is because the policy has deadlines. So I don't know why we would pass a policy today that has deadlines that we're not going to make people meet. But, the policy says you got to have your vaccination and proof of it by such and such date. So I don't know that it would be the best course of order to pass it and then us just not sit back and not ask our employees, where's your proof of vaccination? How come you didn't?
But don't you think people that's not gonna take it would wear the mask?
I think I think for the,
I don't think
Do we
you're
already
gonna-
have
If they
that in
don't
the
want it.
we have a mask policy, yes. Again, I want to revisit that, but
So really all you're doing is making for a mask.
I-
not
I-
Testing. It's not
And-
forcing any injection.
You gotta, if you don't get the vaccination pursuant to these policies, then you gotta have a weekly test and also wear a face mask.
I was just asking questions. No,
Yeah.
I want people to
Yeah.
get the vaccine.
Yeah, I understand.
And that
means good questions. It
Absolutely.
makes me think.
And that testing wouldn't
I didn't
go
mean to
into
do that
effect
one.
until probably the end of December to be ready to have a negative test by January 4th. They wouldn't have to start getting tested until then.
So with that question that we just talked about, then the weekly testing depends on them to pay for that, correct?
That's a good question. And
I mean.
it's a good
I
question.
think
And
it's a double-edged sword. If you
Commissioner-
Yeah.
don't want the
Sure.
injection, then you have to pay for your test. I
But-
don't think the taxpayer should pay for it.
Well, I've looked further into that. There is a state statute, KRS 336.220, that says that if an employer is requiring a medical examination, we cannot, if we're making an employee take a test or an examination, we have to cover the cost.
and I'll give you a current example of that. And I know Commissioner has a question.
Yeah,
Statutes pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Does it need to be amended by the legislature? I'm just trying to cover it. That's all I'm asking. 'cause I get-
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's on the books, so, we have to follow that.
And
You're correct, that was on the books
Pre-COVID.
prior to this COVID ever being discovered.
A current example like that would be our individuals who have CDL licenses. They have to get an annual physical, and we cover that cost. We pay for their annual, just as a similar example, we pay for the cost
but
of that
that's
physical.
annual, right?
It is, yeah, that is annual.
Week.
Yeah, I know. I
Week.
know. I understand that. I understand that.
Judge, are you all looking at something similar to this for county?
Yeah, he and I talked a little bit about that this morning, and I would think the league and Keiko have a really good relationship with one another, and I'm shocked to see that, no disrespect to the judge or Keiko, that you're getting two different,
Two different-
yeah, recommendations from those entities.
This is calling for crystal ball kind of stuff, though. I mean, you're
Sure.
asking your legal department to say what's going to happen, and really nobody knows.
I agree with that, Andrew, and there's still a lot in the air, and the league is telling us that. They're saying there's a lot in the, a lot of things still up for.
Matt, do you get a sense from employees, sort of what percentage maybe are vaccinated? What percentage are saying no, under no circumstances will do it or will quit?
It's a good question. And that's a very good question.
And you don't have
Absolutely.
to answer, but
No,
what I
I-
worry about is people's en masse. There was just an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning saying 30% of employees at some hospitals are going to quit over this. And
yeah.
we already,
I know.
we can't afford to lose.
No, we cannot. I would, my best guess out of 150 full-time employees, I would say that right at 100, just over 100 are vaccinated, maybe a little more. But we also have very good employees who do not want to get vaccinated, and that is totally their choice. and they're good employees. And I don't want to lose those individuals. I really don't. But if this ultimately comes down the pike, it's not coming from the city. It's coming from the federal government.
I think we
Again,
ought to
I
wait till
don't
that
want,
happens.
yeah, and
I'll tell you,
I don't want those,
Yeah.
I don't want those fines.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see, if it does come into play, you're going to see OSHA make an example of employers. They're not going to be able to go after everybody, but they're going to make an example out of somebody, and everybody else is going to go, whoa, I don't want that to be me next. Does that make sense?
but I know we have employees. I know Chief has employees that will not get vaccinated.
Good
They're-
employees.
They're
very good
close
employees.
close to retirement.
Yeah.
I just
Are
as soon,
Are they willing to get mask and testing? Have they said anything about that?
They would do that.
They would do that?
They're not gonna get back.
No,
Okay, and that's fine.
Yeah, and they're good
That's
people.
their choice.
but who's
I
going,
wouldn't.
like
I
Victor
wouldn't-
said, who's going to pay for it?
That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. That's the next thing.
Yeah.
Maybe can you see what other cities are doing on that?
Sure.
About getting, who's gonna pay for
Yeah,
this?
and I mean, so I think the question, or what the commission needs to do today is determine, let's wait and see what the courts do with this and hold tight, like Keiko's advice was to the counties, or vote to pass it, which is what the legislature said.
I know. I know.
Was to us. In my opinion, I don't believe that if we do not pass this today, that we're at risk of being fined by OSHA because of the federal court stay. So if
But
you're
we
not-
have a little time,
if you're
right?
not-
Yeah,
If you're not comfortable doing this today, then I recommend we hold
Yeah.
off and wait and see what the federal court's ultimate ruling becomes.
And it'd be nothing for us to walk up here on with a couple of days' notice to do this.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about, even if you don't mandate people to get shots, if you make it so difficult for them to work that they feel like they have to, and then something goes wrong with the vaccine or one of them, there's 3 or 4, or 5 of them, and then boosters. Is my understanding is vaccine makers are immune from lawsuit for defective vaccines. Have you ever heard that, Mr. City Attorney? I worry that if we make it so difficult for people to work that they have to get it, and then there's something wrong, that we in effect become liable for anything that goes wrong. And that may be remote.
Yeah, but I think the people that's not gotten it now will wear the mask and be tested. so-
They would, yeah,
So
and
you're
I
not-
think they would.
you're
But
not making
again,
them do that.
Commissioner, that's not coming from us. That's coming from, from the federal government. That's not us saying, hey, you have to do this or this. We've always had a voluntary.
The policy does
Yeah.
offer the choice. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's either the vaccination or the face mask.
The testing.
And I just think if you haven't gotten the vaccine, you're gonna wear the face mask and be tested.
And I think Kelly's right. I think we'll have I would think we would have a final decision on this fairly soon. On the flip side, and again, he knows more legal stuff than me. I would definitely take his recommendation, but on the flip side of it, if you pass it, you're done. If it goes into play. And then what I would like to look at, because really the only thing that would go into play on December 6th is the mask policy. That's the only thing that would go into play. But again, I would like to revisit that with you all and possibly relax that. And then if this does go into play and we have to adhere to it, then we can go right back to what OSHA's policy is. Does that make sense?
Yes, I want to just say, I would not want anybody to be forced
Right.
to take the vaccine if they don't want it.
Understood.
Taking
Can
their
we,
choice away.
Understood.
I'm sorry. Can we find out if any other cities have done this and who's paying the cost of the testing?
Well, it sounds pretty obvious if there's a state statute that we're paying the cost.
Well, that statute was
like-
written. I mean, that could
Yeah,
be
it's
interpreted
like
either way. That could be
pre-COVID,
argued. I mean,
But even if it's pre-COVID, it's still, well,
Well, I
unless
think
it's
they
changed.
probably haven't looked at it.
It doesn't seem ambiguous to me. It basically verbatim, cost of medical examination required by an employer. It shall be unlawful for any employer to require any employee or applicant for employment to pay the cost of a medical examination or cost of furnishing any records required by the employer as a condition of employment.
Could we defer this for a couple of weeks?
Whatever whatever you all want to do. I'm just going off the guidance that I've been given from the league. That's all I'm doing.
Well,
with
Matt, thank
all.
you for putting this in front of us. You know,
Sure.
you're in a really difficult spot because you're getting legal advice from the organization that's supposed to be advising us.
Sure.
And I think it's good advice. At the same time, we're caught between a rock and a hard place because we're already short people or trained people. And
And we could read,
we can't lose a significant portion of our workforce.
Oh, I understand. No, we cannot.
and we can revisit this at our regular meeting, which is like 10 days, right?
Right.
Be a week from Thursday. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll try to stay on top of what's going on in the appeals.
Okay.
Obviously, if the stay is lifted, Keiko and League Cities are gonna be screaming at us, get in there and pass this now, you have to do it now, So, but I'll keep you posted and let you know what's going on.
I think we had good questions. I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Why
Yeah. And that's what, we need,
we need.
we're just giving you what we know at
Yeah,
this
right.
point. Yeah. We want more answers as well.
And there's certain things that are unanswered. I mean, this OSHA emergency standard just came out on it this month or last month, or no, November 5th this month. Right?
Well, and the state hasn't even passed their emergency temporary standard. We left that
Okay.
blank in there. They're looking to do that maybe next week.
Okay.
So,
After all this good discussion, I think it'd be prudent to put this off. So there's been a motion and a second, and I voted down.
Yeah,
Or
that's
what-
what they'll have to
or-
do.
or make.
Withdraw it.
Yeah, or
I'll
yeah.
withdraw my second.
Okay.
Who made the motion? Vic, did you?
I
Yes.
I withdraw.
There you go.
I don't use it.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think that's the right way to do it.
That's the
Yeah,
right way to
Yeah.
do it,
yeah, absolutely.
till we know.
So you're thinking the state will pass theirs next week?
That's what Lisa
That's
did.
what Andrea seemed to think. She said, maybe the 10th, but quite possibly before that.
Get copy. We'll stay on top of that.
Yeah.
We'll get copy. That will help us too.
Absolutely.
On ours.
I didn't know that. I didn't.
No, it's okay.
I
It
just
was-
got that
she
email
just
this
got
morning.
that.
I
Yeah,
was trying to fill in this blank.
It's
I know.
okay.
Well, that's why I emailed her, because of the blank.
that's okay.
But that's just one other reason that we're not subject to any fines, because we don't have to pass this until our state adopts the federal standard. And then our local municipality doesn't have to do it till another, reason we don't have to act today.
That's good. I think-
Good discussion. And if we get anything we get, I will definitely pass it along to the five of you.
Yeah.
If you hear anything, let me know.
And I
Yeah.
would probably do it, passing it when they do, but, I don't understand, I know Kelly explained that to me, but if we went ahead and moved forward, but just everything it's on.
Pending the state and
State
the court order.
Would be in effect. I know what you said, but that would be very.
Because there's deadlines where if we pass it, we're gonna have to send out a memo to our employees saying, you gotta either show us proof that you're vaccinated or start getting vaccinated now. So I don't know that we should pass something and then not go by the deadlines that we're
Exactly.
referring to, because those deadlines aren't gonna really mean anything. I think we should defer.
We do.
All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
There we go.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brammer,
Yes.
Commissioner Cartmel,
Yes.
Commissioner Wood,
Yes.
Commissioner McKay,
Yes.
Mayor Cottrell.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you all.